How beautiful true love is, eternal future that you dream of will open up before your eyes. Just reach out your hands, that's all you have to do. When you need a shoulder to lean on, we'll be there for you. Always here to lend a helping hand. Count on us, we're with you. From the bottom of our heart, with our mother's love, we'll love you. In a world that is full of pain, we bring news of joy. With the love of a mother, we want you to know we love you. Open your mind and you will feel eternal happiness. All of your troubles and your sorrows will disappear before your eyes. Just reach out your hands and take our gift of love. When you need us, we'll be by your side, ready to set hope afloat. Always here to lend a helping hand. Count on us, we're with you. From the bottom of our heart, with our mother's love, we love you.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the International WeLoveU Foundation for our webinar this evening, Putting Packs on Backs. I'm your host, John Cassis. I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening and introduce those who are not familiar with the WeLoveU Foundation. We were founded in 2001 in South Korea by our chairwoman, Gil-jah. We are now celebrating our 20th year of spreading a mother's love throughout the global village. For more information about the foundation and for all the works that we're doing around the world, visit us at our website, www.weloveyou.usa.org. You can see it right here at the bottom of your screen. Now, without further ado, I'd like to start tonight's program. First, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, let's begin with Executive Director of Children First Fund, Sadie Stockdale Jefferson. Ms. Jefferson?
Hi, thank you so much for having me this evening. We're really excited to be here. I'm hearing an echo. I just want to make sure it's okay.
We are
Okay.
hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. All right, great. So the Children First Fund is the philanthropic and partnership arm of Chicago Public Schools, which is the third largest school district in the nation. And we're so excited to be here today. The impact that this particular priority and this work has on our students is profound, and so very excited to have the opportunity to share more. CPS's mission is to provide a high quality public education that prepares every child in every neighborhood for success in college, career, and civic life. And as a former teacher myself, I'm just profoundly proud to be here tonight and to speak about the impact that this work has. So thank you for having me.
And on behalf of everyone here, thank you for joining us. Next, we have the principal of the Whitney M. Young Junior School in Jersey City, New Jersey, Mr. Dave Herman. Mr. Herman?
How are you? I want to thank you for allowing me a chance to not only be a part of the foundation, Mr. Walker, the superintendent, had forwarded me, and obviously when you reached out, he thought that my school would be a great thing to kind of receive the backpacks, and I agree. This is my 31st year, and I spent 11 years as an administrator in the high school. kind of forgetting what it was like when you go backwards. So going back to a pre-K and 8, you kind of discover a lot of the things that you forgot that children need. High school students pretty much kind of can run things themselves. Your impact is more them than the parents. But it was a quick lesson learned that going backwards, I discovered that you got to make sure you keep that partnership between a child and a parent. Plus, being a father of 5 and myself, I know how important that is. And thanks.
Thank you for your input, Principal. We have also another principal who's joining us this evening from the Marlton School for the Deaf, Principal Kimberly Miller. Ms. Miller?
Hello. I'm not going to sign through it, but I just want you to know we are a school that uses American Sign Language to communicate with our students. I am Kimberly Miller. I am the proud principal of Marlton School for the Deaf. We are located in South Central LA, and we are the only school like it. So we are a district-run school. We are pre-K to 12th grade, actually ages 3 to 22, for our students who are deaf or hard of hearing, as well as we have a sibling general ed program with several kids from the neighborhood, with the emphasis on everybody using American Sign Language for communication. We are thrilled to be a part of this and look forward to spreading the good news and working with you and having the kids have backpacks because they're often overlooked. So very thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we're proud to have you here to help us understand another side of the educational system. Also here is an instructive aid for the deaf and hard of hearing, Ms. Tamala Davis. Ms. Davis? Okay, I think you're good. No, no, we can't hear you. Can you give us a thumbs up if you're hearing us? Okay, we're not hearing you though.
Is that better?
That is exactly the magic button, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So let me start again really briefly. I'm Tamala Davis. I'm an instructional assistant here at Marlton. And as I'd like to piggyback on what Principal Miller said, that this is a wonderful opportunity for our kids because they are often overlooked. And we look forward to partnering and doing more collaborative work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And for all of you who are watching, you may be curious as to what Putting Backs on Backs program is about. And it's just exactly as the title implies. We're putting backpacks on the backs of the children in our communities who need it the most. Now with the COVID pandemic, it has really exacerbated the economic difficulties of many families. And so those needs are now being seen through the educational programs that we are trying to administer city throughout city. Especially now as we're only just a few weeks away from starting school. Last year, many of the schools were hybrid, some in class, some at home, and some were completely online. But now many schools are now transitioning back to in-class learning. And so many problems that we couldn't address for the past year are now becoming relevant to principals of these schools. So tonight's webinar is really to highlight what are the problems and how we can be part of the solution to some of these problems. I'd like to start first with Sadie. Ms. Jefferson, what is the achievement gap and how does the achievement gap impact your district?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So in our work supporting the 300 and about 50,000 students at CPS and being direct partners of the district, we often talk about the opportunity gap, right? So we know that talent and intelligence are equally distributed, but we all know that opportunity is not, right? And that there are barriers for students that have nothing to do with their intelligence, that have nothing to do with their talent, and things like having basic school supplies. And during the pandemic last year, we saw obviously a disproportionate impact on our low-income students. But equity is at the core of CPS's mission and at the Children First Fund's mission as well. And we define equity as championing the individual needs of students. And so oftentimes those needs are things like supplies, meals, things that can really be barriers for students re-entering and re-engaging with the school system. And we know that exactly what you said, John, that this is going to have a disproportionate impact, on our lowest income students in certain parts of our city. So we're very, excited to partner with, programs and initiatives like Packs on Backs, because we know that these things can be barriers for students re-entering school, and we want to remove all of the barriers we can so that students can be back in the school building 5 days a week, and learning from their teachers who care about them so deeply. So when we think about the opportunity gap, that does translate to things like backpacks, supplies, and basic necessities that students need to be focused on school.
I completely agree. That's why this particular initiative is so personal to a lot of our volunteers, especially the parents that are volunteering in the WeLoveU Foundation. I can recall when I was growing up, this is the week, that back to school week, that was so stressful to get the supplies that you needed, even when supplies were in abundance. So I can only imagine right now what parents are going through in communities that have been hard hit, and these rural, economically challenged communities where supplies are limited and the resources are limited as well. And the stresses that they're going through as a parent, making sure that their children have the tools that they need to be successful in the coming weeks when school starts. Based on that, Principal Herman, could you describe some of the challenges that your students are facing in your school?
So let's go back a year and a half, and I was asked to show up at Whitney M. Young and help them out at the end of January. Whoever thought 30 days later we were going to go fully remote. Now, I was kind of confronted with a few things. I didn't know any of the staff. I didn't know the assistant principal or any of the other support staff that were there. Plus, the only strong point I had was 4 blocks away for 20 years, I taught in a school in the same system. And I have now the parents of the children, but you learn that there's limited resources for them at that point. I had to hit the ground running and figure out how I can get everybody on the same page. It was a struggle, but by the time the school year ended, we weren't anywhere near success level, but we probably had about 50% of the parents interacting with the school and trying to express to us what they needed, right? A lot of people are guarded. And within the conversations and some of the, Zoom calls we had and Google Classrooms and parent meetings, I discovered that education sometimes is the last one on the list. Parents expressed to me that health, food, shelter, those things really matter to them more importantly, even so in a pandemic. So gathering up all that, we hit the ground running for September. We started out remote. No one came back until late April. And in between those months, we discovered that we were able to do food banks, holiday events, come and meet and greets outside. We tried to use the resources that we currently had, as well as entice them to ask for more. We eventually put a laptop in every student's hands. We were able to double that up for this school year. And really, the pandemic taught me, as well as the staff, to listen to the things they're not saying.
Now we have viewers with us right now that are across the country. So whether we have volunteers in New Jersey or all the way across to the West Coast in California, Principal Miller, you understand the challenges that are being faced by your students in your community. Does that differ in any way than what we're feeling here on the East Coast in New Jersey?
It's been very difficult for our students and our families. And as Mr. Principal Herman said, the families were impacted. Many lost their jobs. Many people had to come into their homes to help them. So we did, my district, we had a lot of people working for us. And so we were given, food banks and students always receiving food for breakfast, lunch, dinner. We always made sure that students had food, also the devices. The particular thing for our students is that they sign, and being on small devices makes the window to be able to see very small. And so when you're signing, you don't always get to see it. And then if you have multiple students on the screen at the same time, then you miss what another person is saying. So there were technical problems in that sense, but I feel the pain all the way across, from the East Coast to the West Coast. The pandemic, the COVID really impacted and still is impacting. We are all back in person now, but there are still some families who are very fearful of sending their child, and the numbers are starting to increase. So trying to provide for the students has been daunting, but we were able to do it.
It seems like from New Jersey to California, the issues, the difficulties, the problems are very layered. So it's not just one issue of resources, it's the matters of getting the technology to the students when they need it, who needs it, and then to the places that they need it. But the emotional aspect of what's been going on for the students is something that we also need to take to account. Mrs. Davis, you work with these students day in and day out. You have personal relationships with them. Can you describe how do you feel when you see some of these students in the needs that they have right now, and sometimes perhaps that feeling of not being able to help them in everything that they need?
Yes, it's been really trying for them emotionally. We're talking about students that are sign users, and oftentimes they go home, there is no one to communicate. So during the pandemic, our kids were at home pretty much 24/7 with not a lot of communication or interaction. And of course, that affected them in a lot of ways, emotionally, behaviorally. Um, I am will be soon a social worker within the district, and really focusing on the entire child, and that includes the home, and that includes the community, that includes their the school, because our kids need so much so much more than. And it really showed the gaps in that during COVID, as far as like was mentioned earlier, the technological gaps. Zoom, since most of the schools were utilizing Zoom as the platform, it was very difficult for our DHH students in that it makes the window is very small, and there was a lot of frustration from the parents to the students to the teachers to any of the assistants working in the class. And so we had to really get very creative in how to keep them engaged and how to keep them focused, in addition to trying to notice how they were doing emotionally, how they were handling all of this, and explaining and answering questions, because there was a lot of they were very, very curious as to what was happening and why it was happening, and allowing them to freely express that, so that they could so we could get down to trying to educate and make it as normal as we possibly could.
And on behalf of all the students in each of your respective schools, I want to thank you for being so passionate about what you do. It's not an easy situation to be in, but you're obviously very much involved in the solutions to the problems, and you're thinking about the students in so many different levels, thinking about them in terms of how they're going to receive their education, thinking about their emotional health. So I want to kind of bring it circle back to Ms. Jefferson. How do you believe that these backpack donations will impact the students and the families of those who are receiving them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Going back to something a couple of the principals said, and alluded to, I think there is real power in philanthropy. Last year specifically, when I was working for the district, I'll never forget, we had a grandmother who reached out, who needed something as simple as a table for her grandchildren to work at when learning was remote. And the ability of philanthropy to quickly mobilize to get that simple but needed item for the family. It was simply profound. And so it's not just backpacks, right? It's the message to students, and it's the message to families and school communities that the community cares, right? And that they care enough to provide this resource. And so it's not simply a backpack. It is a message to students, and it's a message that they're believed in. And so it's really important that we as a community, that the funder community mobilize around schools and leaders who have, as these leaders on the call have alluded to, who have been just working tirelessly on behalf of students. And they reach out and they say, we care by providing items as simple as a backpack, but as needed as a backpack is for students right now.
Ms. Jefferson, I feel like you're almost part of the WeLoveU Foundation. I'm going to unofficially make you a member of the team. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm here. These backpacks really are a message to the students that's saying people care. The other point that you hit was that resources are really tight right now, and not just within the families. I think also at a state and city level in terms of the funding that's going to the schools. So my next question is for Principal Herman. Jersey City, I'm very familiar with it, part of Hudson County, one of the most densely populated counties in the entire country. With the budget getting tighter and tighter for school resources, why do you think it's important for educators and school districts to partner with non-governmental organizations like the WeLoveU Foundation to work together in achieving quality education and the resources that all of our students need?
So number one, I love working in Jersey City. I've been here. It's where I grew up. I've had some really good teachers all the way up, meaning as a professional, as a teacher, and gradually going over to administration. I never forgot where I came from. So those layer of relationships, and she said it, right? It's a way in for us to create that bigger conversation. So we've had businesses, right? I can't speak for the other schools, but they've all had their relationships with nonprofits and even bigger business, and some individuals who show up and want to do something, right? It allows that extra conversation. It takes you to another level. It also shows the families that outside influences really do care. It would be repeating everything that so far was said. But as budgets get tighter, we as leaders have to think of another avenue. There's always another street to go down. There's always someone else to talk to. As long as you get permission and you do it right, and you cover yourself, and your main objective is to support your entire population. That's everybody: classroom teachers, your custodial, your cafeteria helpers. I mean, I had a hardcore team there that was there every day. They didn't miss a day, and they just kept moving forward. They made sure the last person that showed up got what they needed. We had a handful of extras come in. Plus, I have the benefit of being a community school. So we get a whole abundance of other resources that we get a chance to kind of deploy in a different way. So those relationships matter, and you can grow on them, which this year will grow even more.
Well, I'm thankful to hear that the school has somebody as resourceful as you that's looking at different ways to meet the needs of the children. My next question goes to Principal Miller. Principal Miller, how do you believe that these backpack donations will impact the students and their families in your respective school district out in California?
Well, again, first I want to say, Sadie, everything you said was perfect, and agreed that for us, especially in our low-income areas, and they're often overlooked, as I said before, that it's a message to the families and to the students that people care about them, and that people want to help them to succeed. So I believe that these backpacks will help the students understand that, as you say, we love, right? We love you. And I think that they don't always know what love is. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for these students to have, really nice backpacks.
Principal Miller, I think you hit the nail right on the head. And that's one of the things that sometimes we might miss when we think of education. It's not just about learning facts and history. It's about taking care of the person as a whole. And nobody can do that better than a mother. So educators are playing the role sometimes of a parent and worrying about all these aspects of a child's life. But we also, as members of our own society and our own communities, need to look to see how we can help those who need it when they need it. The children that are studying in each of your respective schools are the future of our very own communities. So we need to invest in our own future by investing in the children that are going to school now. So my next question is for Ms. Davis. What can society do to help bridge this achievement gap that we're undergoing during the pandemic?
Well, you know, in South Los Angeles, and unfortunately, I think that there needs to be, first of all, an awareness. And I do believe that getting, unfortunately, back to COVID, that COVID actually brought an awareness that before was taken for granted. People just really didn't understand how affected kids in certain areas were deprived of basic things like internet service and access to technology and things of that nature. And there has been, particularly in the special ed area, children in special ed have really suffered a lot during all of this, and they academically oftentimes are already behind. And all COVID did was widen that gap even further. But at the same time, it brought an awareness to those needs of those kids. So, like, for example, something that we discussed a lot would be something like universal internet. Internet should be something that it should be a right that all kids, no matter where they live, all families, no matter where they live, who they are, what they have, should have access to it, because this is the 21st century. Everything is technology driven. And we saw a lot of our kids struggling with that through constantly changing in and out hotspots and things of that nature. So I think just hopefully there's been more of an awareness of that, and we see that academically, technology in particular is very important to close that gap. And so I'm hoping that in the future, maybe we will have access for universal internet service for everyone.
So I have one closing question for everyone. And this is really fun because it's a group of educators and principals who are not used to taking pop quiz. So I'm going to give you a pop quiz. And it's a real simple one, okay? There's no wrong answer. As long as you answer, you get 100. And that is, in one word, can you share with those who are viewing today, what is education to you? We'll start back in the front. Sadie, Ms. Jefferson, would you please?
I would say connection. And I can't explain it, I assume. You said one word, and now I'm on like word 12, so I'll leave it there.
Connection. Okay, Principal Miller?
I'm going to use the word whole in the sense that it's everything. It's not one just piece. It's the whole piece of the puzzle.
Principal Herman?
Motivating.
Mrs. Davis?
Inclusive.
We're inclusive, we're whole, we're connected, and we're motivated. That is the reason why we're having the webinar today. And I really want to thank our panelists for taking out the time in their busy schedules to join us for a good cause. From New Jersey to Chicago to California, the International WeLoveU Foundation is spreading a mother's love to make sure that we can put packs on the backs of the children who need it the most. But in order to do so, we also need your help. So how can you get involved? Now that you can understand the problem, now that you know the need, now what's the next thing you need to do? You need to connect with the International WeLoveU Foundation so that we can make sure that we're successful in this campaign this year. So for only $25, you can support this initiative. All you have to do is go to www.weloveusa.org and subscribe to be a member in our foundation. Or if you'd like, you can donate for the cause of putting packs on backs. Now, we're having our next event in Spencer Technology Academy in Chicago this Thursday, August 26th, at the Marlton School for the Deaf on Friday, August 27th, at the Whitney M. Young Junior School on Thursday, September 9th, and we're looking forward for an ongoing relationship with Children First Fund to make even more schools productive and successful in the Chicago area. So again, I really want to thank all of you for taking out the time, not only to participate in tonight's webinar, but also to join it and listen to these passionate educators and understanding the problem that is happening around the country right now and how you can be a part of the solution. So once again, we have one lasting message for all of our panelists and all of our viewers. We love you. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good night. See you all soon.
Word